What a ridiculous piece of nothing this is. The Gazetę Wyborczą left really wants their own affair of Tashmova. But the fact is that the right, though they may frequently be lacking some competence, I'll say that a little more delicately than I rant about it on social media, there's not the level of institutional corruption that existed under PO, who sold Polish sovereignty as well as the Polish economy to Brussels and Berlin for what I call metaphorically cash in a bag. People like Bielecki, specifically, especially, they for 15 years, they were, Russian-style, smaller scale, but Russian-style oligarchical behavior, privatizations that benefited the few at the expense of the many and the populace and the country and the national economy. So the level of corruption, if this is what they have, Kaczynski is a citizen of this country. He's allowed to invest. We all know Kaczynski. I mean, there's no illusions about Kaczynski being, duplicitous in, he says one thing behind closed doors and another thing public. He's been pretty consistent his whole career and his whole life and his whole public life of what he stands for, and he is not corruptible in my view. Anything that might have happened that could be construed as corruption is, I think, quite overstated because intent matters. I look at the transcripts and I see, at least in the initial running out of what they have, adherence to law, a focus on adherence to law as opposed to a focus on trying to contravene and act in contravention of law. So different than Affair Tashmova, where, one public face of people, like Sikorsky and Giertych and all these what I call louses, the way they talked publicly versus their behavior that we found on the tape scandal. So I think this is nothing. And part of what I was sending messages around to people, before it hit, when there was hype going around the night before, earlier this week. There's hype that Gazetę Wyborczą's got hidden tapes, the next Affair Tashmova, and they've got Kaczynski, blah blah blah. And if they have to hype it, so I'm a big student of two, I think, the greatest philosophical strategists of information war and brokerage, which is Walter Lippmann. He wrote Public Opinion in 1920, and Edmund Bernays. He wrote a book called Propaganda in, I think, 1928. And they talk about how they drive people's opinions, changing opinions on the margin in society through emotion, through getting to people emotionally. And when you have to sell the hype before the story, that means that they know they don't have much. They know that they need to drive a deeper level of engagement from all of their counterparties, their counterparts in the other parts of the media complex to force them to cover it or to give them a heads up, we got something coming, get ready. If they really had something explosive, the element of surprise is the key technique in InfoWar, in media operations, is getting your opponents totally off base so they do something stupid because you've got the element of surprise, you've destabilized them. And then it also cuts through so much deeper if it really is substantive. And that's not the case here. They're trying to, second derivative, bring more out on it, and there's some stuff that goes, to Krupinski and Pekow. Everybody's read my column. They know how I feel about Michał Krupinski and his running of PZU and Pekow. I don't think this is an honest guy. My personal opinion. I've got a right to that opinion. I've expressed that pretty clearly, that this is a guy who's involved in his own operations and games that have destabilized the Polish right with his patron Zbigniew Ziobro. So this Gazetę Wyborczą attack, if anybody's going to get hit on it, it's probably going to be Krupinski for special preferences in the banking sector. Good. That seems to me to be justice. But to try and tie Kaczynski to something, let's see what the records and the financial actual activity is. It's just like when they tried to tie Morawiecki to Get Back, but there was nothing there.